The moment the chandelier light hit the beaded neckline of my borrowed dress, I knew I'd walked straight into a trap, one I'd lived in my whole life without ever naming it. My mother's voice cut through the ambient chatter before I even reached the table sharp enough for nearby guests to glance over. "Still clinging to that petty florist job, Lily," she said loudly, intentionally. My brother chuckled, adding, "Hey, at least she has something to keep her busy." Their laughter didn't sting the way it used to. I'd learned to fold pain into silence. But even as I sat down trying to shrink into my seat, the ballroom screens were beginning to flicker, warming up for a presentation none of them knew would change everything. And in less than an hour, the whole room would hear my name spoken in a way my family never believed was possible. I hadn't even wanted to come. The annual Westmont Business and Leadership Banquet was always my family's favorite arena, a polished room where reputation was currency and humiliation could be disguised as concern. My mother Elaine had insisted I attend, practically dragging me into the event, as if my presence validated her social status. My father Ronald had already spent the ride reminding me how presentable I needed to be. And my brother Caleb barely looked up from his phone, only offering the occasional snicker when Dad made jabs about me still arranging tulips for a living. They had no idea I almost turned the invitation down because of what tonight represented: a room full of business owners, industry giants, CEOs, the world they believed I would never touch, and the world I'd quietly built a place in without them ever knowing. As we took our seats near the back of the ballroom, Caleb turned to me smirking. "Be honest, sis, you're only here for the free food, right? I mean, this isn't exactly your crowd." Mom chimed in without missing a beat. She could learn something from being around real professionals. Dad nodded approvingly. "Hard workers, people who don't just play with flowers and call it a business." I kept my eyes on the stage, letting their words dissolve into the soft hum of chatter. I'd trained myself to absorb their dismissal the way glass absorbs light, silently bending it into something else entirely. Ava would have told me to walk out. My best friend had begged me not to come at all. But some buried part of me had wanted to see this through, to sit in the same room where their certainty lived, to watch it crumble in real time. A server set down a small plate of appetizers in front of me, and instantly Mom reached over and took mine. "You're always so picky anyway," she said, placing it next to her own. I didn't react. Reacting only fueled them. "Did you bring any samples tonight, Lily?" Caleb grinned mockingly. "Maybe you could hand out bouquets to the guests." Dad laughed. "Oh, she doesn't have real bouquets. She has those, what do you call them, plant balls, bloom spheres," I said quietly, though I knew it didn't matter. Mom waved her hand dismissively. "They're cute. But they're hobby things, dear. Not business things. If I hadn't lived through years of moments like this, it might have hurt. But tonight, it barely scratched the surface. Maybe because I knew what was coming. Maybe because I'd prepared for this exact kind of dismissal my whole life. From our table, we had a clear view of the stage. Several large LED screens framed the podium, glowing with rotating sponsor logos. Soon they'd begin the Innovators of the Year showcase, a segment where rising luxury and lifestyle brands were honored. My brand was one of them. The brand no one at my table even knew existed. My father scanned the room with the confident posture of a man who believed he belonged there far more than I did. "This, Lily," he said with a sweeping gesture at the guests, "is what success looks like. Structure, leadership, real work, real work." I almost smiled. The kind of smile you make when someone unknowingly sets up their own downfall. Mom leaned toward Caleb, whispering loudly enough for me to hear. "Imagine if she'd chosen a real degree. Something in finance like you." Caleb smirked. "She'd probably faint if she had to work a real job." Dad let out a soft chuckle. "Flower arranging is easy. Anyone can do that." I pressed my fingertips together under the table, grounding myself as the hurt tried to claw its way back up. But something inside me, something old and bruised, felt steadier tonight. The ballroom's golden lighting reflected on the screens. The speaker walked up to the podium. The program was about to begin, and my family was still blissfully unaware of what was about to hit them. A server passed with champagne, and Caleb grabbed 2 glasses, one for himself, one for Mom. He didn't bother offering me one. Dad clinked his glass with theirs. "Here's to another year of Jensen excellence." Mom lifted hers proudly. And to Caleb's promotion, he'll be running the department soon. Caleb shrugged modestly, though he soaked in the praise like always. Someone's got to make the family proud. Mom glanced at me as she sipped. And Lily, dear, well, at least you're doing something. It's not much, but it's something. Not much. $1 billion valuation apparently didn't qualify as much. The stage lights dimmed. The room fell into an anticipatory hush. This, the announcer's voice boomed, is our favorite part of the evening. Tonight we celebrate the creators and innovators shaping the future of the luxury lifestyle industry. My heart thudded. Caleb sighed, bored. Finally. The fancy people. Dad nodded. Let's see the real players. Oh, they would. The screens flickered, the first segment title appearing in gold. Rising Giants of Luxury Design. My palms tingled with adrenaline. Mom fanned herself with her program. Lily, dear, you may learn a thing or two. This is what real innovation looks like. I inhaled slowly. A moment later, my entire world and theirs was seconds from exploding, and they didn't see it coming. Not even a little. The applause from the first honoree faded, and the ballroom lights softened as the next introduction slide prepared to load. I could feel my family settling into that familiar posture, the one where their spines straightened and their smugness lifted an inch higher, because they believed the world reflected their narrative back at them. To them, this banquet was proof that Caleb was rising, Dad was influential, Mom was socially relevant, and I was the harmless background blur. A soft ripple of conversation drifted across the tables as the MC spoke. Our next feature spotlights a creator whose work has reshaped a growing corner of the lifestyle market. My father leaned in, whispering, "Now this will be interesting. Pay attention, Lily. You'll see what innovation really looks like." Lily, the name they used when they wanted to remind me how small I was. Their ignorance might have amused me if it hadn't once crushed me. A server paused beside us and Dad waved him off impatiently. "Not now, we're trying to listen." Caleb nudged Mom, grinning. "Bet it's one of those tech guys. Watch, he'll be half her age and already worth millions." Mom smirked. "Well, some children bring honor. Others bring centerpieces." The screens brightened. An ambient hum filled the ballroom. I drew a breath so deep I felt my ribs strain. My family had no idea that the brand being introduced had been born in a cluttered garage studio, grown through 70-hour work weeks, and built on faith in something no one else saw value in. A belief that came from me, not them. Silence washed over the room as the first visual appeared, a slow rotating gold sphere surrounded by drifting petals. The crowd reacted with a few surprised murmurs. Mom frowned. "That's unusual." Dad squinted. "What is that thing?" Caleb laughed under his breath. "Looks like a Valentine's Day decoration. If he only knew." A clean transition cut across the screen. Then the title, The Rise of Floating Bloom Design. A low gasp escaped from someone at a nearby table. A woman whispered to her partner, "This brand is blowing up fast. Wait till you see what they're doing with hospitality chains." My mother straightened. "Hospitality like hotels?" Dad nodded. "Probably some startup trying to get noticed." The MC continued, his voice warm and energized. This creator began with nothing but an abandoned greenhouse and a vision. Dad chuckled. "Sounds like another romantic hobbyist." Another slide. Then the first clip. My silhouette blurry, but unmistakably me arranging test petals under a skylight in my warehouse. Gasps spread wider this time. Mom blinked rapidly. "That can't be." Dad leaned forward. "Is that?" Lily Caleb's jaw slackened. "No way." The clip zoomed in, revealing the workspace, the equipment, the signature bloom sphere suspended in a frame. Then my voice in a recorded interview filled the hall. I wanted to create something that didn't just decorate a space, but transformed the way people felt inside it. Mom's hand flew to her chest. Dad whispered hoarsely, "Oh my God." The moment stretched thick and crystalline, like the air before a glass shatters. The MC smiled. "And now let's honor one of the fastest-growing luxury innovators of the year, the founder and CEO of Bloomvast." The screens erupted in gold. My name appeared in massive letters. Lily Harper. The ballroom exploded with applause. My family sat motionless. Their shock radiated in every tense muscle, every pale stare, every struggled breath. Mom's voice broke first. "Lily, you're joking. This is a joke. Tell me this is some kind of prank." Caleb tried to laugh, but it came out strangled. "Since when do you run anything?" Dad's fingers tightened around his glass until the stem creaked. "How long have you kept this from us?" The applause continued, oblivious to the unraveling at our table. My pulse thudded in my ears. I didn't turn toward them. I didn't owe them answers. Not tonight. Another clip began playing me in the Bloom Vast shipping bay, examining prototypes, directing my team, presenting our luxury line for a resort client. My voiceover described the meticulous process of developing the signature floral spheres. Guests started turning their heads toward our table. Whispers circulated. "Is that her family?" "They didn't know?" "Didn't they support her launch? They must be devastated." Mom's composure crumbled in real time. "But you told us it was just a florist job," she whispered, trembling. "You let us think you were barely getting by." Caleb stared at the screen as if it had betrayed him personally. "This isn't real. It can't be real. You, a billion-dollar CEO." A woman at a nearby table leaned toward me, smiling kindly. "Congratulations, Ms. Harper. Your work is extraordinary." My mother's face contorted pride, shame, anger, disbelief, all tangled into one. She answered for me, voice shrill. "Yes, well, we always knew she had a creative streak. Our family encouraged that from a young age." The lies stung more than the insults. Another round of applause filled the ballroom as the segment closed. "Please welcome Lily Harper to the stage." My stomach nodded. It wasn't fear, just the weight of two worlds colliding. Mom grabbed my arm. "Lily, you need to tell them we helped you. This is our family's achievement." Dad's voice tightened. "You don't walk up there alone. Do you understand?" Caleb pushed his chair back sharply. "You owe us this moment. Owe them." The word echoed like a cracked bell. I gently pulled my arm free. Then I stood. And from the way a dozen nearby guests rose to applaud, from the way faces lit up with admiration, from the way the spotlight inched toward me, I knew what tonight truly was. I stepped away from the table as their voices faded. What rose inside me wasn't anger or triumph, just a quiet certainty. This was the moment I finally chose my own life, freedom. I stepped away from the table, letting the applause guide me toward the stage, leaving the voices that once defined me, fading into the background where they finally belonged. The moment my heel touched the first step leading to the stage, a ripple went through the crowd. People shifted, turning toward me, and I felt the heat of 100 spotlights converging. I didn't fully process any of it. My family's voices still buzzed at the edge of my mind, accusing panicked desperate, but they no longer shaped my stride. I kept walking steady and unhurried while applause rolled across the ballroom like a slow-breaking wave. Halfway up, a man in a slate-gray suit leaned toward the aisle and whispered to his colleague, "That's the founder." "Incredible story." Another guest murmured, "Self-made, built it from nothing." Their admiration didn't inflate me, it steadied me. For years, I'd lived beside people who believed nothing I did counted. This was the first time the world seemed to disagree. Behind me, a chair scraped the sharp, angry kind of sound that signaled someone standing abruptly. Caleb's voice sliced clean through the applause. "Lily, you can't just walk away from us." His tone carried more shock than authority, like he'd stumbled into a reality that refused to bend for him. I didn't turn. The crowd's reaction swallowed his words before they could land. Reaching the stage, I paused as the MC extended his hand. His smile was warm, proud, and genuine. "Welcome, Lily Harper," he said into the mic, the creative force behind Bloom Vast. Applause surged again, but not all of it was celebratory. Some carried curiosity, some awe, some recognition. The kind that came when people saw a name they'd only read about suddenly walked into the spotlight. The MC guided me toward the podium. "Before we present the award, we want to share a brief look at how Bloom Vast rose so quickly in the luxury market." Another clip started on the screen behind me, and I could feel the ballroom shift. This wasn't the polished brand video from earlier. It was more personal footage of my early sketches, pinned across a garage wall, prototype petals strewn across a folding table, the first bloom sphere crafted by hand under a single hanging bulb. My breath caught. I hadn't known they'd use this. As the video played, soft narration filled the room. The signature floating bloom design originated in a converted garage in Harbor Springs, Michigan, where Lily Harper worked nights experimenting with suspended floral structures. Guests whispered, impressed. A man near the stage nodded slowly. "That's grit. You can't teach that." The camera in the video cuts to my old greenhouse sunlight filtering through broken panes, plants growing in crooked rows, the dusty floor I swept every morning before starting work. Those memories had sharpened me more than they'd ever softened me. The applause that followed the video hit me in the chest. Somewhere in the back of the ballroom, Mom's voice rose high and frantic. That greenhouse belonged to her grandmother. We gave her everything she needed to start. A few heads turned toward her. Her desperation clung to every syllable, a flimsy attempt to rewrite history while standing in front of strangers who hadn't asked for the story. The MC didn't acknowledge her. He offered me the polished acrylic award crystal edges catching the stage lights. I wrapped my fingers around the cool surface. It felt heavier than I expected. "Congratulations," he said. "Your work has changed an industry." Standing there, trophy in hand, I felt an unexpected pull, a sharp memory of nights when I'd sat on the greenhouse floor crying silently because nothing I made looked right, because every failure felt like proof my family had been right about me. Then one morning I'd found a simple note taped to the greenhouse door: "Keep going. Beauty grows where you insist on planting it." My grandmother had left it, not my parents. She was the only one who ever believed I had something worth tending. A warmth settled in my chest, as if she were still standing somewhere close. I stepped toward the microphone. "Thank you," I began. Bloomvast started in a space smaller than this podium. I didn't have connections or funding. Just a greenhouse, a lot of stubbornness, and the belief that beauty can be built from almost anything if you refuse to quit on it. A hush fell over the ballroom. I know what it feels like. I continued to be underestimated, to be told your dream is too small, too impractical, too impossible. But sometimes the very people who can't see your vision are the reason you chase it harder. The words came easily, not rehearsed, not polished, but true. Behind me, the screens shifted to a montage of Bloomvast's installations, floating floral rings in luxury hotels, suspended spheres in cruise ship atriums, sculptural plant art in high-end residences. The crowd seemed mesmerized. Down below, my mother's expression hardened. She clutched her clutch bag so tightly, her knuckles whitened. My father stared at the stage with the stunned look of someone watching their blueprint for the world crumble. I finished simply. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that your worth isn't determined by who fails to see it. The applause that followed was louder than anything earlier. As I stepped back from the podium, a woman in a midnight blue gown reached up from the front row and touched my hand. "Your story is going to change a lot of young entrepreneurs," she whispered. "Thank you for telling it." Making my way down the steps, I felt lighter. The weight of years of ridicule didn't sit on my shoulders anymore. The world had just seen me clearly, fully, without distortion, but the freedom lasted only a moment. My family rushed to the front of the stage before I reached the floor. Mom's eyes shone with panic. "Lily, you embarrassed us. Every person in this room thinks we abandoned you." Dad edged closer, lowering his voice as if he could control the scene by volume alone. "You need to set the record straight. Tell them we supported you." Caleb stood behind them, arms folded tight, jaw twitching. "How could you hide this? You made us look like idiots." Their voices collided, tripping over each other, all talking at once. My award felt warm in my palm, steady and grounding. I met their eyes one by one. "This wasn't your moment," I said quietly. "And none of this was for show. It's my life." Mom sputtered. "We're your family," Dad pressed. "We deserve recognition too," Caleb added. "Everything changed tonight, Lily. Don't pretend it didn't. They were right. Things had changed. Just not in the way they assumed. Before I could respond, applause from the next honoree's introduction filled the room, giving me a chance to slip away. I walked toward the side exit, the award tucked close, their voices fading into a dull buzz behind me. Tonight wasn't about escaping them. It was about stepping into a life where I no longer needed permission to exist. Ahead, the hallway stretched quiet and warm, humming with the distant echoes of celebration. And I followed it without looking back. The hallway outside the ballroom felt like a different world. Softer lighting, distant music, the hum of conversations drifting through half-closed doors. I paused long enough to let the weight on my chest loosen. My family's voices still echoed faintly behind me, blurred by disbelief and bruised pride, but at least they were muffled by distance. A catering attendant wheeled past with a tray of empty glasses, glancing at the award in my hand. "Congrats," he said with a friendly nod. "Big night for you." I managed a small smile. "Thank you." It was the first genuine interaction I'd had all evening. As I rounded the corner toward the reception lounge, footsteps quickened behind me. Caleb's voice followed, rushed and uneven. "Lily, wait! Just stop!" I kept walking. He sped up and placed himself between me and the lounge entrance. "Seriously, you're just going to walk away like you didn't drop a bomb in the middle of the banquet?" My grip tightened around the award. "I didn't drop anything. They invited me here. That's not what I mean, and you know it." His expression wavered between outrage and something like fear. For the first time, the constant confidence he wore like armor seemed cracked. That alone made me pause. "You've been hiding all of this," he said. "The company, the money, the press. You let us think you were just scraping by. You let yourself think that I corrected. None of you ever asked what I was building." He scoffed. "You could have said something." "I did?" I said quietly. "Just never loud enough to get through the noise you all made." Caleb's jaw clenched. He opened his mouth to retort, but footsteps echoed behind him. Mom and Dad emerged from the ballroom, both tense, both scanning the hall like they were searching for evidence that could fix the narrative they'd just seen crumble in front of hundreds of people. Mom rushed toward me first. "Lily, sweetheart, please come back inside. People are asking questions. We need to show unity as a family." Dad nodded sharply. "Exactly. That video made us look like we weren't there for you. We can correct that if we handle this right." That word "handle" hit me wrong. "You're thinking about optics," I said, "not about me." Mom flinched at the softness of my tone, which always scared her more than anger. "Honey, don't twist this. We love you. We're proud of you." "You're shocked," I replied. "That's not the same thing." Dad dragged a hand down his face, frustration bleeding through. "You don't seem to understand what's happening. Your brand is everywhere tonight. Reporters will want details. Journalists will dig. We need to be prepared." "We," I repeated. "Bloomvast isn't a family business." "You're our daughter," Mom snapped. "Your accomplishments reflect on all of us." She said it like a warning, as if I owed them the glow of everything I'd earned. I stepped back. The hallway suddenly felt smaller. "You spent years telling me my work didn't count," I reminded her. "You mocked it tonight." Caleb joined in. Dad rolled his eyes every time I said the word studio. "And suddenly, I'm a reflection of you." Mom's cheeks flushed. "We didn't know. If you trusted us, I did trust you," I said. "That's the part you never cared about losing." Silence hung between us. A distant burst of applause from inside the ballroom filled the gap. Dad broke first. "You're being dramatic. You can't hold a few comments against us." A faint laugh escaped me, hollow and tired. "A few comments, Dad? It's been years." His expression tightened as if I'd insulted him by remembering the truth. Caleb took a cautious step forward. "Look, maybe we said stuff we shouldn't have, but you blindsided us. If you'd told me you were launching something big, I could have helped. I have contacts." "I didn't want contacts," I said. "I wanted space, and the chance to succeed without someone calling it luck or a phase." His lips parted like he didn't know how to argue with that. A voice floated down the hall, then warm, familiar. "Lily." A figure approached from the lounge. Amber Wyatt, one of the biggest names in luxury hospitality design. She smiled when she spotted me, then reached out to squeeze my hand. "I've been looking for you," she said. "Your work blew me away. I want to talk about collaborations, maybe even a resort series. Do you have a moment?" Her timing was perfect and terrible. My family straightened instantly the way people do when someone valuable enters a room. Amber glanced at them politely. "Are you Lily's family?" Mom stepped forward before anyone else could answer. Yes, we are. We've supported her creativity for years. This success means everything to us." The lie stung. Amber didn't catch the tension behind the words. She simply nodded and turned back to me. "Come join us in the lounge. We're having a small industry meetup." Mom's fingers curled around my arm. "Lily, we need to settle this first." Amber raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" I offered her a small, reassuring smile. "It will be." Then I shook off my mother's hand gently. This time she didn't grab me again. Maybe she finally noticed the way I stood rooted steady, unmoved by the pull that used to drag me back into their orbit. "I'll meet you in a minute," I told Amber. She nodded and headed back toward the lounge. The hallway felt quiet again. "You're choosing them over us," Caleb asked, disbelief spilling out. "I'm choosing myself," I said, "for the first time." Mom's voice cracked. "We're your family." I met her gaze, and I'm finally learning how to be mine. Dad inhaled sharply, but whatever argument he had died on his tongue. He looked defeated, suddenly older, as if the truth had drained the authority right out of him. I turned toward the lounge. "Lily," my mother called after me, "if you walk away now, everything between us will change." I stopped for a heartbeat. "You're right," I said. "It already has." Then I moved forward toward the warm light, toward people who saw me clearly, toward a version of myself I'd been trying to reach for years. The door closed behind me, shutting out the echo of everything I'd outgrown. The lounge glowed with warm amber light, soft jazz drifting from hidden speakers and clusters of well-dressed guests leaning over small tables with cocktails in hand. My shoulders loosened the moment I stepped inside. It felt like crossing a border from chaos into calm, from accusation into possibility. Amber waved me over to a private nook where 3 industry executives were already seated. "There she is," she said, motioning for me to join them. "Everyone, this is the creator behind Bloomvast's signature installations." They greeted me with genuine interest, not the thinly veiled curiosity I'd grown used to tonight. One of the men, an architect who'd designed boutique hotels across the West Coast, leaned forward immediately. "I've followed your pop-up installations for years, the suspended orchids over the coastal atrium in Laguna Brilliant." A small laugh escaped me. "That one nearly collapsed during setup. The humidity was brutal." "Exactly," he grinned. "That's why it impressed me." Conversations spilled in quickly after that. Collaborations, design philosophies, shared war stories about budgets and deadlines. For the first time tonight, I wasn't Lily the disappointment or Lily the supposed fluke. I was simply a creator among creators. But the moment didn't last. The lounge door opened sharply, and I heard Dad's voice before I even saw him. "Excuse me, has anyone seen Lily Harper?" I stiffened. Amber glanced at me, concerned flickering in her eyes. "Do you want me to get security?" "No," I murmured. "Let me handle it." Dad spotted me instantly. Mom and Caleb followed close behind, their discomfort spreading like a cold draft through the warm room. The executives sensed the shift and politely excused themselves, leaving me and my family facing each other in the center of the lounge. Dad spoke first. "You can't leave us out there looking like fools." "I didn't do anything to you," I replied. "You did that on your own." Mom's voice rose. "We didn't know your company was worth so much. We didn't know you were on TV. You could have told us. You weren't listening," I said. "For years." Caleb stepped forward, trying to claim control over a moment he didn't understand. "Look, all we're asking is a simple statement, something public, just clarifying that we supported you, that you didn't do this alone." My chest tightened. I did this alone. A heavy silence followed. Someone at a nearby table whispered, "Is that the family from the video Mom heard it?" Her eyes darkened. "This is humiliating, Lily. People think we neglected you." "You did," I said quietly. Dad exhaled through his nose the way he did when a conversation wasn't going the direction he wanted. "We paid for your high school art supplies. We gave you a roof. You're acting like you built your life from ashes." "I built it from indifference," I corrected. "Which is a lot heavier." Mom clutched her clutch bag. "You're being dramatic." The word hit me like a slap. I took a slow breath. Do you remember the banquet 4 years ago? The one where I showed you my first design prototype and you told me it looked like a kindergarten craft project? Or the night I asked for advice about applying to a small business grant and you said I should stop chasing childish things and get a real job? Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. Dad's gaze drifted away. The truth hung between us, sharp and undeniable. Amber returned, then placing a hand on my shoulder lightly. Is everything all right here? Mom straightened instantly. This is a family matter. Her tone was clipped dismissive. Amber didn't budge. Lily is a valued partner in discussions we're having tonight. If she needs space, she has it. Dad bristled. We can speak to our daughter wherever we choose. Amber's expression cooled. Not in this room, you can't. A few heads turned. The tension had grown too thick to ignore. Caleb stepped closer to me, lowering his voice. At least come outside. We're not trying to fight. You already did, I whispered. He hesitated, then said something I didn't expect. You made us look small tonight. My heart didn't lurch or tremble. It settled. I didn't make you small, I said. I finally stopped shrinking. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to bruise. Dad's face tightened the way it always did when he felt cornered. If you walk out with these people, don't expect us to fix this later. I met his stare. I'm not asking you to fix anything. Mom blinked rapidly, caught between anger and panic. Lily, this family has always been about loyalty. When we look bad, you look bad. No, I said, shaking my head. When you look bad, you blame me. Amber cleared her throat softly, as if reminding me I didn't need to stay in this circle anymore. I nodded once, then turned to my family. I'm not going to rewrite history for your comfort, I said. I won't pretend you believed in me when you didn't. I won't pretend you built something you never touched. And I won't stand next to you tonight just so you can borrow what you once dismissed. Mom reached for my wrist, but I stepped back before her hand touched me. Lily, she whispered, you're choosing strangers over us. No, I answered. I'm choosing respect. The words stunned her into stillness. I turned and walked toward Amber and the executives waiting beside the terrace doors. The warmth of the room reclaimed me the second I left my family behind. Guests smiled as I passed. Conversations resumed. The world moved forward. Before the door closed, Mom called after me, her voice thin, trembling. We're still your family. I didn't turn. We are, I said, but that doesn't make you my foundation. The door swung shut, cutting off everything behind it. The terrace air was crisp, bright, alive with the hum of possibility. I took a long breath, letting the night settle into my lungs. Tonight hadn't destroyed anything. It had finally exposed the truth. And now I could decide what to build next. The terrace overlooked the city, glittering with 1,000 pinpoints of light, but my mind wasn't on the skyline. I leaned against the railing, grounding myself in the cool air, while the muffled buzz of the banquet pulsed behind the glass doors. For the first time all evening, I felt my heartbeat begin to steady. Amber approached quietly. You handled that with more grace than I would have. I exhaled slowly. It didn't feel graceful. It was, she said, and for what it's worth, you're not the first founder I've seen outgrow their family's version of them. Her words eased something inside me. But before I could respond, a younger woman stepped onto the terrace, a brunette with sharp eyes and a tablet pressed to her chest. She gave me an excited smile. Sorry to interrupt. Lily, right? I'm Brooke, social media producer for the event. I nodded. We have a small issue, she continued, lowering her voice. There's a clip circulating from inside the ballroom. Someone recorded your mom shouting. It's spreading fast. My stomach tightened. How fast? Thousands of views in minutes. Amber's expression hardened. Show us. Brooke turned the screen. The video captured my mother's panicked outburst earlier, her voice brittle and cracking. We supported her. That greenhouse was ours. She owes this family. The camera panned to me, walking away, the award in my hand, calm and expressionless. Online comments scrolled beneath the clip. Yikes! Talk about taking credit. That girl built everything from scratch. Her family needs to chill. Why does success bring the worst out of people? Brooke hesitated. "We can get ahead of this if you want." How, I asked. A statement. Nothing dramatic, just clarifying who built the brand and who didn't. My chest tightened at the thought. No, I'm not feeding that fire. Amber nodded approvingly. Good. Let your work speak for itself. Brooke left us alone again, but the video clung to my thoughts like smoke. A soft voice drifted from behind the terrace pillars. Lily. I turned. Daniel Hayes, Bloom Vast's first investor, the one who gave me a chance when I had nothing but prototypes and a stubborn streak stepped into the light. His smile was quiet, familiar, centering. There you are, he said. I saw your family outside the lounge. Thought you might need an exit hatch. Exit hatches are becoming a theme tonight. He chuckled and leaned on the railing beside me. I watched your speech. You've grown into it. The confidence, the clarity. I don't feel clear. You're clearer than you think. We stood in comfortable silence while the wind tugged at the edges of my dress. Daniel eventually glanced toward the banquet hall. They're scared, you know. I frowned. Of what? That you no longer fit the story they built for you. His words hit harder than I expected. Their version of you served their needs. Quiet, manageable, predictable. But you stepped out of that, and they have no idea how to behave around the real you. The truth in his voice felt like a bruise pressed too gently to be ignored. I didn't respond right away. The city lights swam slightly blurred by emotion I didn't want to acknowledge. Daniel didn't push. After a moment, he changed the subject. Listen, I need your input on something. It's important. What's going on? He hesitated, then glanced toward the glass doors. There's another investor here tonight, he said. One who's been trying to buy a controlling share in Bloom Vast through a back channel. They want to acquire your patents, your supply line, everything. My pulse kicked. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I only confirmed it an hour ago. Who is it, Elysian Holdings? The name hit my gut like cold metal. Elysian wasn't just a rival. They were notorious for swallowing small brands, gutting them, then selling the empty shell for profit. They'd tried to buy me out twice in the early days. I said no both times. Daniel continued, Their CEO is here tonight. And your family? He hesitated. My stomach sank. What about them? They've been speaking with Elysian's legal team for the past hour. The railing felt suddenly unstable beneath my hand. Daniel's gaze sharpened. Lily, I don't know what they promised your parents or what your parents think they can pull off, but you need to be aware Elysian plays dirty. A wave of nausea rose in my throat. They can't access anything. They have no stake. True, Daniel said carefully, but if they think you owe them something, they could be telling Elysian they can influence you. A chill trailed down my spine. Mom's earlier words echoed back at me. We supported her. She owes this family. To Dad. We can fix this if you cooperate. Caleb's, everything changed tonight. Suddenly the pattern made sense. Too much sense. My parents weren't stunned by my success. They were strategizing around it. They weren't proud. They were calculating. Daniel placed a steadying hand on the railing. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you because you need to decide who gets access to you tonight and who doesn't. The wind picked up, carrying laughter from inside the banquet. The sound felt distant, unreal. I swallowed hard. I don't want a public war with my family. You don't have to start one, Daniel said. Just be careful not to give them ammunition. I nodded slowly. From inside the banquet hall, a familiar silhouette appeared near the terrace door. My father's stance, my mother's rigid posture, Caleb's restless pacing. They were scanning the room, searching for me with a kind of frantic hope. Not love, not reconciliation, opportunity. Daniel's voice softened. You ready? I pulled my shoulders back. I am now. He gave a small smile. Good, because they're coming. The terrace doors swung open, and the night shifted again. Dad stepped onto the terrace, first shoulders squared like he was walking into a negotiation. Mom followed with a tight, urgent expression, and Caleb hovered behind them, trying to look composed, but tapping his fingers against his thigh in thinly veiled impatience. The three of them formed a wall in front of the open doors, blocking out the glow of the ballroom. Lily, Dad said in a low voice, we need to talk, now. Daniel shifted beside me, but I gave him a small nod. It was fine. I could handle this. Mom wasted no time. "You didn't tell us the truth about Bloomvast," she said, breath quickening. "We deserve to know." "We're your family." I steadied my voice. Everything happened in stages. Nothing was certain until recently, and even then you never asked. She blinked rapidly, as if the accusation were unfair. "We shouldn't have had to ask. You should have trusted us from the start." Caleb stepped forward. "This is bigger than you, Lily. You're not thinking long-term. We could help you. We already took a step that might open doors for all of us." My pulse kicked. What step? He hesitated, glancing at Dad. Dad held his stare, then gestured slightly with his chin permission. "We spoke with Elysian Holdings tonight," Caleb said. "Their executives said Bloomvast could scale faster with real backing. They were impressed that your family was involved." I felt a jolt of disbelief. "How is it involved?" Mom straightened her blazer. "We told them we'd been supporting your work from the beginning, providing stability, encouraging you." "That's not true?" "It's close enough," she said. The casual dismissal stung more than the lie. Dad stepped forward. "Elysian wants a meeting with you, tonight if possible." "Their offer could change everything." "It wouldn't change anything for me," I said. "For us," Dad corrected. "This is a family opportunity." Daniel's voice cut through the tension. "Bloomvast isn't for sale." Dad's jaw tightened. "This is a family discussion." "No," Daniel said evenly. "This is a business discussion you're not authorized to have." Dad turned toward me, refusing to acknowledge Daniel. "You need to tell him he doesn't speak for you." "He does," I said. "He's my first investor." "You're not." The words landed hard. Caleb muttered a curse under his breath. Dad tried again. "Lily, listen. Elysian wants to acquire your patents. They said the designs could be worth hundreds of millions. With our guidance, you could negotiate better terms." I stared at him. "So you talked to them about my patents without me?" Mom's lips tightened. "We were advocating for you, and for the family. You're too close to the situation to see the long-term opportunity." A laugh escaped me before I could stop it, soft, disbelieving, tired. "All of you mocked me 2 hours ago," I said. "Suddenly you're qualified to negotiate on behalf of my company." Mom lifted her chin. "You embarrassed us in front of everyone. This is a way to show them we've supported your success." "You didn't support it," I reminded her. "You minimized it every step of the way." The truth sat heavily in the air. My family flinched, but none of them denied it. Caleb pushed forward with new urgency. "Lily Elysian asked how much influence we have over your decisions. Dad said you respect his opinion, that we could help guide the company." My stomach dropped. "You told them that?" Dad nodded as if it were obvious. "Of course, we're your parents." The cold air around us suddenly felt thinner. Daniel spoke quietly into the tension. "That's coercion, Lily. If they're presenting themselves as stakeholders, they're misrepresenting your governance structure." Dad snapped. "Stay out of this. He's not wrong," I said. Caleb's frustration spiked. "Why are you fighting us? We're offering help. You're acting like we're enemies. I'm acting like a founder," I said, "protecting her company." Mom exhaled sharply. "You're being selfish." "No," I replied. "I'm being responsible." She took a step closer, voice trembling not with emotion, but with indignation. "Do you understand what you're walking away from? Elysian told us your valuation tonight hit over $1 billion. That's more than you can manage alone." "They said 1.2 billion," Caleb added, voice edging toward excitement. "Do you have any idea what that means? I did. Better than any of them. But the number wasn't the point. You can't promise a company access to something you don't own," I said. "You can't negotiate deals for me. You can't sign on my behalf." Dad stiffened. "Families make decisions together." My voice cooled. "Not when only one person built the thing you're trying to trade." Their expressions shifted at the same time offense twined with dawning fear. I continued steady and calm. "Bloomvast doesn't belong to the Harper family. It belongs to me. My patents, my trademarks, my supply chains, my designs. You don't get a percentage just because you share my last name." Mom's voice broke. "How can you say that? Because it's true." Caleb tried one more time. "Lily, come on. We're not asking for everything, just enough so we're not left behind." Left behind. There it was, the real fear. You left yourselves behind, I said. Dad tried to speak again, but Amber stepped onto the terrace. Lily, she said gently, they're ready for you in the private suite. The designers want to talk about collaborations. My family's faces tightened. Opportunity slipping, influence dissolving. Dad pointed toward Amber. This is what we mean you're choosing strangers over us. I looked at them and spoke without anger. I'm choosing people who see me. No one had a comeback for that. As I turned to follow Amber inside, Mom's voice rose behind me, thin and breaking. If you walk away, we won't forget this. I didn't turn back. You don't have to, I said. I'm finally remembering who I am. Then the terrace door closed between us, sealing the moment like a chapter ending on its own terms. The private suite overlooked the ballroom from a tall glass wall, its interior lit by soft amber sconces and low conversation. Designers, investors, and event sponsors clustered in small groups, drinks in hand, their attention drifting between the panoramic view below and the quiet negotiations unfolding inside. Amber guided me toward a semicircle of velvet chairs where a handful of executives were already waiting. Their faces lit up when they recognized me. Lily Harper, one of them said warmly, "We've been eager to meet you for years." I offered a polite smile, the kind reserved for people who genuinely respected the work, not the fame. It's good to finally connect. We settled in and the conversation flowed easily. Future collaborations, material, innovations, sustainable floral engineering. These were the types of discussions that fueled me. No ego battles, no family politics, no one demands ownership of something they never planted or watered. But the peace didn't last. The suite door opened sharply and a tall man entered with a confident stride that bordered on practiced arrogance. A few heads turned. Someone whispered his name. Ethan Voss, CEO of Elysian Holdings, the rival. He scanned the room until his gaze landed on me. A slow smile curved across his face, polite but predatory in the way deals are made in back rooms with handshakes that hide agendas. Amber leaned closer and whispered, he wasn't invited to this suite. It didn't matter. He was here now and he came with a purpose. Miss Harper, Ethan said as he approached. Congratulations, $1.2 billion overnight. Impressive. I inclined my head slightly. Thank you. It's not every day someone disrupts 4 industries at once: art, floral design, luxury decor, and immersive hospitality. His tone was smooth, rehearsed. The designers around us shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. Ethan didn't wait. I've spoken to your family. Of course he had. And I asked. They care deeply about your success, he said. They assured me you're open to expansion via acquisition and that you value their input. My jaw clenched, but my expression didn't move. Interesting. They don't speak for me. He studied me, amused. Ah. Family politics. Always messy. Daniel stepped up beside me, his voice steady. If you want to speak about Bloomvast, you speak to Lily. No one else. Ethan barely acknowledged him. I admire your work, Miss Harper. Truly. It's groundbreaking. But Bloomvast could become more than a niche luxury brand. With our resources, your designs could be global-scaled, franchised, mass-produced. Mass-produced. The word made my spine tighten. What you're offering isn't growth, I said. It's dilution. A few people murmured in agreement. Ethan didn't flinch. Think bigger. Licensing deals. Automated floral fabrication. You could put your pieces in every mall atrium and airport concourse. No, I cut in. Why not? Because Bloomvast isn't meant to be a disposable decor. It's art. He tilted his head, wearing a knowing smirk. Art doesn't scale. Business does. The tension in the room thickened. Look, he continued, your family seems concerned you're overwhelmed. They said you might need guidance, infrastructure, experienced hands. My throat tightened, anger simmering low and quiet. What they said, I replied, is irrelevant. They don't hold shares, they don't sit on my board, and they don't make my decisions. Ethan raised a brow. You built a billion-dollar company alone? Yes. A small wave of applause rippled from one corner of the suite. His smirk faltered. He hadn't expected that. I admire the confidence, Ethan said, but I should warn you, stubborn independence can destroy momentum, especially when people close to you feel Excluded. The subtle threat wasn't subtle at all. Amber stepped forward. "You're done here." Ethan ignored her locking eyes with me. "Last chance, Miss Harper. Meet with us tonight. If you don't, the window closes." "Then let it close," I said. The room went still. Then someone exhaled, loudly relieved. Ethan's smile sharpened into something colder. "Your family won't like that decision." I felt the sting of his words, but not the fear he expected. They don't get to decide my future. Ethan stepped closer enough to challenge, but not enough to touch. Families can complicate things, influence public narratives, shape the press. They told me stories about your early years, about the little greenhouse they supposedly funded, about the emotional support they provided while you developed your craft. I met his gaze evenly. Stories are cheap, especially the ones told by people trying to benefit from someone else's work. Amber folded her arms. "Time to leave Voss." Ethan shrugged, backing toward the door. "Fine, but remember, Miss Harper, alliances matter, and the wrong enemies can make life complicated." He left without waiting for a response. Silence lingered for a moment before Daniel turned to me. "He's bluffing. Elysian can't force anything. But he's right about one thing," I admitted. "My family handed him a narrative." Amber placed a gentle hand on my arm. "Then rewrite it, publicly, on your terms." I nodded slowly, the weight of the night shifting into clarity. A designer approached with a glass of champagne. "For courage," she said. I accepted it. But before I could sip, the suite door slammed open again. Caleb rushed in, pale, breathless, panicked. "Lily," he gasped, "you need to come downstairs, now." My heart dropped. "What happened?" He swallowed hard, eyes darting between me and Daniel. "It's Mom," he whispered. "She did something, and she won't stop crying until she talks to you." The suite went silent. I set the champagne aside and followed him into the darkened hallway. Caleb moved so fast, I had to match his pace just to keep up. The elevator chimed open, and we stepped inside without another word. His chest rose and fell in quick, uneven breaths. He kept wiping his palms on his jacket like he was preparing himself for something he couldn't quite say aloud. When the doors closed, I finally asked, "What did she do?" He didn't look at me. "Just don't be mad at her. She's overwhelmed." "That's not an answer." Caleb's jaw tightened. "She thinks she messed up. With Elysian, with the video, with everything." My heartbeat sped. Whatever happened, fear not guilt was driving him. The elevator dinged and we stepped into a dim hallway that led toward a quieter wing of the venue. Caleb motioned to a side door. "In there." I pushed it open. Mom sat on a leather bench against the wall, shoulders hunched, mascara streaked across her cheeks. She looked small, deflated, nothing like the sharp, demanding woman who had marched through the ballroom earlier. Dad stood beside her, rubbing her back, but his jaw was set like stone. The moment they saw me, Mom burst into fresh sobs. "Oh, Lily," she cried, "I made everything worse." I approached slowly. "Tell me what happened." She reached into her purse with trembling hands and pulled out a folded document, crumpled, creased, stained by tears. She held it toward me. I signed something, she said. I didn't know what it meant. Cold dread slid down my spine. I opened it. Elysian Holdings Letter of Intent, a pre-contract agreement. A non-binding but dangerous document that claimed preliminary family endorsement for a cooperative acquisition discussion. My signature line was blank. Mom's wasn't. I stared at the ink. "You signed what," Mom covered her mouth. "As a family representative." "You're not a representative," I said, "of anything in Bloomvast. You have no rights." Dad stepped forward defensively. "She thought it would help. They told us I cut him off. They manipulated you, and you let them." Mom shook her head rapidly. "I thought if we supported the transition, you'd give you a piece of the company I finished." Silence. Dad's eyes hardened. "You're twisting this. We were trying to protect you. Elysian called your valuation exaggerated. They said your patents weren't defensible. They said you'd collapse without real backing." My stomach tightened. "They baited you. They warned us your investors could cheat you," he insisted. "That Daniel could take control." Daniel, the only person here tonight who had protected me with zero expectation of gain. Caleb stepped closer. "Lily, they freaked out. They panicked when that video of Mom blew up. Elysian said they could help shift the narrative, make us look united if we showed good faith. Good faith, I repeated. They used you to pressure me. Mom sobbed harder. I shouldn't have signed. I know I shouldn't have, but they kept saying we'd lose our chance if I didn't. I closed my eyes, piecing the situation together. Elysian exploited my family's insecurity. They fed their fear. They played into old wounds and unhealed pride, and my family, desperate to regain control of a story they'd never owned, handed Elysian leverage. Dad tried again. You need to fix this. Tell them you're considering their offer. No. Lily, he warned, they won't take rejection lightly. They said they could make this messy. Let them try. He blinked, stunned. Caleb exchanged a nervous glance with him. Are you sure they talked about going public? About lawsuits. For what I asked. For not selling my own company. For refusing a predatory takeover. They have nothing. Mom looked up, eyes red. We didn't mean harm. We just, what I asked, softly. Wanted a portion of something you never watered. Wanted recognition you never earned. Wanted access to something only after the world valued it. Mom's lip trembled. We were scared you'd leave us behind. I didn't leave, I said. You turned away. Years ago. Dad's expression cracked for the first time. He wasn't angry anymore. He was ashamed, and that terrified him more than anything. But this wasn't the moment to soothe him. I held the signed document up. This means nothing. It's not enforceable. But it shows me exactly how far you were willing to go to be part of something you never supported. Mom whispered, Lily, please don't hate us. I don't, I said. But I'm finally seeing us clearly. Before anyone could speak again, the hallway door opened. Daniel entered, breath tight. Lily Security found Ethan Voss downstairs. He's telling reporters about a pending partnership between Bloomvast and Elysian. Dad stiffened. Mom covered her mouth again. Caleb swore under his breath. Daniel continued, He's using your mother's signature as proof. I felt the world sharpen into focus. Okay, I said. Dad demanded, What are you going to do? I folded the document carefully. I'm going to end this. Caleb took a step after me. Lily, wait. I turned back just long enough to say, Stay here, all of you. Then I walked down the hallway, not shaken, not frantic, focused, resolved, ready to face the man who thought he could buy my voice by borrowing my family's noise. This time, I wasn't walking toward a spotlight. I was walking toward a line I was ready to draw. Ethan Voss stood in the lobby like he owned the entire hotel, surrounded by 2 assistants, a camera crew, and a half circle of reporters hungry for a quote. His voice carried across the polished floor, smooth, persuasive, dripping with corporate charm. We're thrilled at the prospect of working with Bloomvast, he said. The Harper family is aligned with us, and we expect Lily to confirm the partnership shortly. A murmur spread through the crowd. Flashbulbs popped. Pens scratched against notebooks. I stepped forward, every click of my heels slicing clean through the noise. Ethan saw me and straightened. There she is, he said loudly. Miss Harper, ready to make a statement. I stopped several feet away, leaving space like a border he hadn't earned the right to cross. Actually, I said I am. The reporters turned toward me instantly, microphones rising like a flock of startled birds. Ethan flashed a rehearsed smile. Excellent. I'm not partnering with Elysian Holdings, I said clearly. A ripple of shock swept through the group. Ethan blinked once, slow, deliberate, before recovering. Lily, he said, voice pitched low as though we were old friends. I think you're confused about the paperwork your family signed on your behalf. It's invalid, I said. They don't have authority. They don't own shares. They're not stakeholders. His jaw twitched. Just barely. A reporter spoke up. Miss Harper Elysian claims they received preliminary family approval. I lifted the folded document. This, I let it unfold. This is a non-binding letter of intent signed by someone who has no ownership in Bloomvast. Elysian misrepresented her authority. Cameras flashed. Someone gasped. Ethan's composure slipped. That signature, he said, shows strong willingness. No, I interrupted it, shows that you preyed on fear. You pressured someone overwhelmed. You approached my family behind my back. That's not a partnership. That's manipulation. A wave of whispered reactions filled the lobby. Ethan tried again. "You're young. Sometimes founders don't understand how this works." "I built a billion-dollar brand without you," I said calmly. "Explain to me again what I don't understand." His mouth tightened. I stepped closer, just enough so only he and the closest reporters could hear the quiet steel in my voice. "You exploited a moment of insecurity," I said. "My family made mistakes, but you made a choice." He recovered quickly, too smoothly. "We simply acted on information provided to us." "Information you solicited," I replied. A reporter raised her microphone. "Miss Harper, does this conflict suggest fractures within your family?" I breathed once, just once, and chose honesty over polish. "We're navigating complicated emotions," I said. "Success doesn't erase old wounds. But no matter what's happening privately, it doesn't give a corporation the right to leverage us." The crowd murmured approval. Another reporter called out, "Will Bloomvast be exploring legal action against Elysian?" Ethan stiffened. "We'll be evaluating our options," I said. "Tonight makes one thing clear. Bloomvast will never sign with a company that attempts to force an acquisition through intimidation." Ethan stepped forward, voice sharp. "You're making a mistake." "No," I said quietly. "I'm making a boundary." He looked like he wanted to argue, but the cameras were rolling and the room had already turned. His calculated confidence faltered. Irritation cracked through the veneer. He signaled to his assistants. "We're done here." They scrambled behind him as he pushed through the revolving doors and disappeared into the night. The crowd buzzed. Questions flew. Cameras flashed. I held up a hand. "I'll release an official statement in the morning. Thank you." Then I stepped away, pulse steady, shoulders loose. I expected reporters to chase me, but they didn't. They stayed behind, processing what had just unfolded, rewiring the narrative in real time. Daniel appeared at my side. "You handled that exceptionally." I gave him a small, exhausted smile. "I'm holding it together with stubbornness and adrenaline." He chuckled softly. "That's how most revolutions start." We walked toward the elevators, but a familiar voice stopped me. "Lily." I turned. Dad stood at the edge of the lobby, hands in his pockets. Mom beside him, red-eyed and drained Caleb, hovering a few steps behind. They looked smaller here, quieter, not defeated exactly, but exposed. I approached. Mom wiped her eyes. "We didn't know what they were doing. We thought we were helping." I didn't shield her from the truth. "You signed something without asking what it meant." She nodded, shame shifting her posture. "I know. I'm so sorry." Dad cleared his throat. "We were wrong. All night we were wrong. The admission cost him something. I could hear it." "I was proud," he continued. "Proud you built something on your own. But I didn't know how to say it. And when that video started spreading..." His voice cracked slightly. "I got scared. Scared people would think we failed you." "You didn't fail me tonight," I said softly. "You failed me years ago. Tonight just showed the cracks." Dad swallowed hard. "We may never fix all of it, but we want to try." Mom stepped closer, hesitant. "If you'll let us." Their sincerity wasn't perfect, but it was real. For once, they weren't demanding anything. Caleb stared at me with a strange mix of guilt and respect. "You were right," he said. "Elysian almost steamrolled all of us, even me." Relief softened something in my chest I hadn't realized was clenched. "This doesn't erase everything I said, but it's a start." Mom nodded quickly. "Anything. We'll do anything." "For now," I said gently, "just stop trying to manage me." Dad exhaled. "Fair." I didn't hug them, none of us were ready for that, but I didn't walk away either. Daniel nodded toward the elevators. "You ready?" "Yeah," I said. As we stepped inside, I glanced back at my family. They stood together, quiet, humbled for once, not demanding or blaming. The doors slid shut, and for the first time all night I felt something settle deep inside me. Not triumph. It wasn't triumph or payback, just a quiet sense of direction, the kind that comes when you take back the story someone else tried to rewrite. The morning after the press disaster, sunlight spilled across my kitchen counter, catching on the unfinished bouquet I'd left there, the night before a mix of white ranunculus and soft green eucalyptus stems, still damp from the rinse sink. Somehow, even with the chaos swirling around Bloomvast and my family, I always found calm in the quiet ritual of arranging flowers. It grounded me in a way numbers meetings and billion-dollar valuations never could. Daniel let himself in using the keypad carrying 2 coffees. "You're trending again," he said, setting 1 cup beside me. I lifted an eyebrow. "Good trending or catastrophic?" "A little of both. Mostly good." "That figures." He gave me a look, gentle perceptive. "You handled last night better than most CEOs twice your age. Investors are impressed. The board wants a meeting tomorrow. Emergency meeting or congratulations meeting." "Depends on your perspective," he said. "But they're behind you." Hearing it from him meant more than he knew. My phone buzzed before I could answer. A text from an unknown number lit up the screen. "This is Maya from Sunrise News, requesting a live interview today regarding your public refusal of Elysian. Please confirm availability." I stared at it. My stomach flipped. Daniel leaned closer. "You don't have to do that. Not yet. I know I said. But maybe I should." Before either of us could say more, another notification appeared. This time, from my father. "We'd like to talk. Not about business, just us." A second message followed as if he was afraid I'd ignore the first. "If you're willing." My chest tightened, not with anger this time, but something gentler, something I hadn't felt when it came to them in years. Daniel saw my face. "Do you want me to stay?" "Give me 10 minutes, I said softly. "I think this is something I have to face alone." He squeezed my shoulder once before stepping outside. A few minutes later, my parents and my brother stood on my front porch, looking nothing like the confident, polished family I'd once tried so hard to impress. They seemed older, smaller, as if the weight of everything, public embarrassment, fear of losing me, their own mistakes, finally cracked the shell they'd spent decades hiding inside. Mom spoke first. "We didn't come to defend anything." Dad nodded. "We just want to listen, if you'll let us." I stepped aside and let them in. The living room felt strangely intimate with all of us sitting there, hands wrapped around warm mugs, silence stretching long enough to hurt. Caleb broke it. "I owe you an apology, a real one." I waited. "I acted like your success was a threat, like if you rose I had to fall. That wasn't fair." His voice wavered. "I grew up believing our parents' version of you, that you were the strong one, the self-sufficient one, the one who didn't need anything." "I needed plenty," I said quietly. "I just learned early that asking didn't work." Mom flinched. "We know." Dad swallowed hard. "We failed you, not because we didn't love you, but because we let our fear steer everything. Fear of losing control. Fear of people seeing our weaknesses. Fear that we'd raised 2 children so differently that someone would notice. They noticed, I said. Everyone did." Mom wiped her cheek. "We know, and we deserve every piece of criticism we're getting. But we want you to know what we said at the banquet wasn't hate. It was insecurity. We felt left behind by you, unnecessary." The words hit deeper than I expected. "Why didn't you just say that I asked?" Dad answered honestly. "We didn't think we had the right." Something in me shifted, not forgiveness but understanding. A door cracking open, not swinging wide. "I won't forget the years you overlooked me," I said, "but I'm willing to see who you are now." Mom reached for my hand but stopped midway waiting. I let her take it. Caleb cleared his throat. "I told Elysian no when they contacted me again this morning. They tried to offer me some kind of mentorship package." I shut it down. He gave a strained smile. "Thanks to you, I'm not for sale anymore." We talked for over an hour, not perfectly, not smoothly, but honestly. When they finally left, I stayed by the window long after their car pulled away. The past didn't vanish, but it felt lighter somehow, like I'd set down a bag I'd been dragging for years. Daniel came back inside. "How'd it go?" "They're trying," I said. "For the first time, they're really trying." He nodded as if he already knew. "You look different." I laughed softly, less angry, more free. The ease in his voice warmed me. "There's something else," I said. "I saw your message about the investor retreat in Santa Clara next week." He raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying yes?" "Yeah." I think it's time Bloomvast stops playing defense. Daniel smiled, not wide, but deep and genuine. Then I'll book us seats. As he headed for the door, I called after him. Daniel. He turned. Thank you, I said, for standing with me, even when everything was messy. He didn't step closer. He didn't lean in. He just gave a look so steady it almost undid me. You don't need someone to save you, Lily. You just needed someone who didn't run. After he left, I wandered back to the half-finished bouquet. I lifted one stem, trimmed the edge, and placed it exactly where it belonged. For the first time, the arrangement felt complete. And so did I. When the final bloom fell into place, something inside me settled quiet, sure and stronger than anything fear had ever built. The rooftop terrace buzzed with the low hum of conversation, clinking glasses, and warm laughter. Nothing like the banquet where everything had first unraveled. Rows of soft lights draped above us in loose arcs, casting a quiet glow over the official Bloomvast relaunch event. Reporters mingled with investors, creators with retailers, and friends with strangers. But all of them were here for one reason. Tonight marked the beginning of the company's next chapter. I slipped away from the crowd for a moment, leaning on the terrace railing. The city stretched below in waves of street lamps, headlights, and illuminated windows, a living mosaic of stories unfolding all at once. A breeze lifted my hair, carrying the faint scent of peony petals from the arrangements placed throughout the venue. Daniel appeared beside me holding sparkling water. "Your investors are looking for you," he said. "You're kind of the reason everyone's here." "I'll make my rounds," I said. Just needed a second to breathe. "You earned one." He stood beside me quiet, letting the moment settle. That was one of the things I appreciated most about him. He never tried to fill silence, just to prove he belonged in it. Behind us, someone tapped a microphone. "Lily, you're up, a staffer called." I exhaled slowly. "Ready?" Daniel nodded. "More than you know." I walked toward the small stage set at the center of the terrace. As I stepped into the warm wash of lights, the chatter softened into anticipation. Faces turned, some familiar, some curious, some clearly emotional, because they'd watched the corporate drama unfold in real time. The crowd quieted completely. "Thank you for being here," I began. The microphone caught my voice with surprising clarity, steady, despite the swirl of nerves in my stomach. Bloomvast started as a tiny floral booth I worked between community college classes. I didn't have investors, mentors, or even family rooting for it. I had a few buckets, a folding table, and a stubborn belief that flowers deserved more than being treated like last-minute gifts. A soft ripple of laughter warmed the room. That belief grew into designs, then into arrangements, then into full-scale installations, and eventually, a brand. A brand built on creativity, sustainability, and heart. I scanned the room. I found my mom standing near the back, with my dad both watching with a mixture of pride and regret. Caleb stood a little off to the side with Rachel, arms crossed, not defensive, but protective. It made something inside me want to exhale for the first time in years. But Bloomvast's growth didn't come easily, I continued. And this past year reminded me just how fragile success can feel when old wounds resurface. I had to face things I'd avoided for most of my life, doubts, expectations, and the pain of not being seen. My throat tightened for a moment, but I didn't break stride. None of this journey was graceful, but it was honest. And when everything threatened to fall apart, you're the people who helped me rebuild. A cheer rose. Daniel gave a subtle nod behind the lighting equipment. I smiled. Bloomvast is relaunching tonight with a new purpose, not just to sell flowers, but to empower creators, designers, dreamers, anyone who's been told their craft isn't a real job. I heard that for years. Some of you heard it too. A murmur of recognition swept across the terrace. Tonight, we reclaim that narrative. The applause that followed wasn't explosive, it was warm, steady, real. I thanked the crowd once more and stepped down from the platform, immediately greeted by handshakes, congratulations, and offers that ranged from collaborations to feature stories. A few reporters asked about Elysian, but I kept my answers short. That chapter was closed. Eventually, I found my way back to the edge of the terrace where my family waited, hesitant but hopeful. Mom spoke first. "Your speech, It was beautiful. Dad nodded, expression tight with emotion. You've built something extraordinary. We're proud of you, Lily. Caleb stepped forward, rubbing the back of his neck. You made it look so easy. It wasn't, I said softly. I know. That's the point. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no tearful group hug. But as they stayed beside me watching the city lights, it felt like the kind of beginning that didn't need theatrics, just intention. Daniel approached after they'd moved on to mingle. I think your board wants you to meet 2 executives from Sunpoint Media. I'll catch them in a minute, I said. I want to take this in. He nodded, hands slipping into his pockets. You deserve a moment to enjoy what you built. We stood together, the noise behind us fading into a comfortable hum. For years, success had felt like armor, something I built to protect myself from old hurts. Tonight it felt different. It felt like freedom. I keep thinking about that banquet, I said. How embarrassed I felt. How small. He glanced over. And now I feel whole. Like every scar ended up pointing at me here. Daniel didn't say anything, didn't need to. The look in his eyes said enough. The event stretched late into the night. Eventually, as the crowd thinned and the last of the floral installations were misted down for morning transport, I stepped back onto the terrace railing and looked out over the skyline. A year ago, I'd walked into a banquet as the overlooked florist daughter. Tonight, I walked out as the woman who built her own empire root by root, bloom by bloom. If you've ever felt underestimated, if you've ever had to rebuild yourself from the pieces someone else broke, I hope my story reminds you that your path belongs to you, and you get to write every chapter from here. If this journey meant something to you, I'd love for you to share your own stories below, and if you'd like more, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. There's so much more to tell, and I'd be honored to share it with you.